Part 21. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 202. You can't hit, you can't scold, you can't scold. Can't you take care of your nephew and son-in-law? Looking at the three women in front of him, Li Jinhai's face turned dark. His originally dark face now looked a bit arrogant. What Li Kui meant, Li Jinhai looked at Wen Nuan with cold eyes and gritted his teeth. The girl who got married turned her elbows outward. Han Qian is now involved in a big case, and he is the center point of this case. There were too many involved, and Nuan Wen's face was a little tangled. Looking at her second uncle, and then at Han Qian, she took a step back. After solving a problem, Li Jinhai's sky became a little brighter. He turned around and glared at this seemingly weak girl. Li Jinhai was born in the military and had an aura about him that made Ji Jing a little scared, and she was instantly frightened. Another one was solved. When Li Jinhai looked at Yan Qingqing, the girl didn't even give Li Jinhai a chance to speak. She waved her hand and said irritably, "What does it mean that Han Qian is the central point? Who is responsible for so many guns flowing into the city? Han Qian is just a hostage who has had a different experience from us and knows how to save himself. He has more courage than those kneeling on the ground. Can it be said that he has the courage to? Is it a crime to fight against gangsters? I'm teaching my nephew and son-in-law a lesson that has nothing to do with you. They are all divorced, how can you educate them?" When it came to the latter part, Yan Qingqing also knew that she had spilled the beans, so she turned around and ran away. Han Qian's expression on the hospital bed changed and he started to lift up the quilt to escape. Li Jinhai's expression changed from surprise to confusion, and then his face was filled with anger and he took off his clothes. He took off his police uniform, took off the gun from his waist, grabbed the chair and threw it at Han Qian. Everyone was panicked, and Han Qian was even more panicked. He got out of bed and ran barefoot. Li Jinhai's chair hit the hospital bed. Yan Qingqing pulled Li Jinhai and told Han Qian to run quickly. Yu, who was eating wontons from a small paper bowl, was beside him. Shishi held the small bowl and hid far away, looking at Han Qian's back with burning eyes. At this moment, Han Qian was wearing shorts. Li Jinhai was trapped in the gap between the two hospital beds by Wen Nuan and Yan Qingqing, and the chair was also taken down. Seeing that he couldn't break free, Li Jinhai reached for the gun behind him and roared with extreme anger. "Little bastard, I will kill you if the director doesn't do something today. My niece is not worthy of you." At this moment Han Qian had already run away. It was almost dark outside. Li Jinhai sat on the edge of the bed with his chest rising and falling, glaring at Han Qian who was lying on the bed again. His drip was about to start again. Li Jinhai glared at Han Qian and gritted his teeth angrily. "I will ask Wen Shu about the matter between you and Xiao Nuan. You two had better get married as soon as possible. I can't afford to lose this person if I follow you." A Changxiang vice president and a talented young man who is famous throughout the city. "Kai Jun, are you divorced? Is there something wrong with your brain, Nuan Nuan? Are you going to get divorced just because you say it is divorced? I am too lazy to talk about you two." When Nuan lowered his head and said nothing, Han Qian muttered in a low voice. "Then you don't have to say much." Boom. Li Jinhai's iron sand palm slapped Han Qian's leg. Han Qian could feel a sharp pain through the quilt. Li Jinhai said in a deep voice. "Say you can't do it. I heard on the phone, what crime did this guy Luo Shanda commit, and whose hands is the evidence?" Han Qian looked out the window and whistled, with cold sweat all over his face. This appearance made Li Jinhai laugh angrily and continued calmly. "Feng Lun is calling you, Han Qian. Do you want my second uncle to stay in the bureau for a few days on suspicion of harboring you?" Han Qian took a deep breath, turned his head, and said seriously. "If you don't want the whole Yamanmen to turn into chaos, second uncle." You said that the top leader of the Yeomanmen knows that I have evidence of the crimes of most of the Yeomanmen officials. Is he panic? Well, you can't arrest me. There seems to be no evidence to prove that Feng Lun and I are accomplices, right? I don't know whether Luo Shanda committed a crime or not. You heard what Feng Lun said, right? It's just that he has a confidant. Isn't that a crime? Feng Lun said he would send you Luo Shanda's information. Where should it be sent? He asked me to guess, but I don't know either. Li Jinhai glared at Han Qian, and Han Qian looked at him with a smile. Does Han Qian want Feng Lun to be captured and brought to justice? He thinks. But Feng Lun is not a fool. The fact that he dared to call Han Qian shows that he has his own plans. He just wants Han Qian to attract the attention of these people and be too stared at. In fact, most of the people in the Yamen now prefer that Feng Lun died outside and not be caught at the last time, because if Feng Lun is caught, their crimes will be exposed. The only one who wants to arrest people is Li Jinhai. Even Feng's Haida didn't want Feng Lun to be caught. Seeing that Li Jinhai was silent, Han Qian smiled. Second uncle, what is the identity of the young woman who was taken away by Tu Xiao? Boom. Another slap, Li Jinhai said irritably. A star has a special background and is very popular in her circle. She must have been invited here by someone. Why do you ask this? I feel like there are not enough women around you. By the way, you live in Huangchen now, building 24, garden, right? Yes. I understand. Next time Feng Lun calls you, listen to what's going on around him. Also, get married to Wen Nuan as soon as possible. How old are you? Don't hang out with Tu Xiao and get Luo Shanda. Tell me after the evidence of the crime, and what is the relationship between Feng's Haida and you? Why are you doing harm to others when you have nothing to do? Yes, I understand. By the way, second uncle, is Lin Zongheng dead? The knee seems to be injured. That's what it should be. Being used as a chair by Feng Lun and dragging Feng Lun around in the hall for a few times is enough. How are you better than others? You were almost shot to death. I still have something to do. Your aunt will come over to see you tomorrow, be careful. The last sentence also refers to what Han Qian was aware of. Li Jinhai left and scolded Guan Yunbiao on the way out. Fortunately, Guan Degu was so thick-skinned that he thought it was a fart. It's getting dark outside again. Seeing that none of the girls in the room had any intention of leaving, Han Qian chose to shut up. He knew that things were about to reach another climax. As Han Qian expected, Nuan spoke when he got into the quilt. Yan Hu, have you noticed that I have given you some smiles these days? Are you the only one with a long mouth? Are you the only one who knows about my divorce with Han Qian? Next time if you don't have a handle on your mouth, sew it shut. Be mute. Blame me? Who knew your family didn't know about your divorce? Is it me who wants a divorce? It's Han Qian, come out here. Your injuries are not fatal. I get angry when you mention this. I'm not worthy of you anymore? Do you want to divorce me? Wen Zhuiying, please don't bully Han Qian. If it weren't for your love affair with Lin Zongheng, would Han Qian be divorced? Lin Zongheng? Can you like his coward? Let me introduce him to you. Am I blind? You think you're not blind. I'm blind and I know which man is better. Want to fight? Let's go. The two women became more and more angry as they talked, and left the ward one after another. Han Qian exposed half of his head under the quilt, and his body trembled involuntarily when he looked at the slammed door. He looked at Jijing and Yushasai. It's dark outside. Jijing sat on the edge of the bed and sighed, nodding slightly. Well, it's dark. But he had no intention of leaving at all. Han Qian turned his head to look at Yushasai by the window and said softly. Aren't you with Teacher Tong today? Yushisai shook the big golden waves, narrowed his eyes into crescent moons, and said softly. She said I grind my teeth while sleeping, and the hotel is overdue, so I can only make do with one night here. After saying this, Ji Jing suddenly raised her head, and then Han Qian spoke. That won't work. I can't sleep even if you grind your teeth, Aunt Ji. We have a hotel in Glory, right? Open a top-notch suite for Miss Yu, just count it on the Deputy General ledger. Yushisai slowly opened her eyes, looked at Han Qian in astonishment, and said seriously. You don't want me to live here? That's right. It's not good for a man and a woman to live together. Besides, didn't you say you grind your teeth? Straight man. Absolutely straight man. Grinding your teeth is just a lie, this man? No emotional intelligence. Gradually, Yushisai's face turned ugly, and she shouted angrily while stepping on a pair of high heels. You deserve your divorce. He stepped on a pair of high heels and left the ward. Han Qian and Ji Jing were left in the ward, and the atmosphere instantly became very ambiguous. Han Qian took a deep breath and said softly. Season. Auntie Ji, please give me a room. Before she could say anything, the door to the ward was pushed open, and Yushisai smiled like a vixen. Still mixed race. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, A Huan. Chapter 203. Discharged. Finally discharged from hospital. Han Qian was not afraid when someone pointed a gun at him in the hotel, but he really felt it in the hospital. Yan Qingqing's slip of the tongue caused the little friendship between her and Wen Nuan to disappear completely. However, the two women, Ji Jing and Yushisai, didn't seem to get along well. They were actually fine. What made Han Qian uncomfortable the most is when a monster comes. As long as there are nursery rhymes here, she will attack Ji Jing and Yushisai eloquently, and basically ignore Yan Qingqing and Wen Wen. What made Han Qian collapse the most was a question that Tanjio asked two people respectively. Poetry, aren't foreign countries very open? How many boyfriends have you had? How long have you been living together for the longest time? I heard that foreigners are very strong, can you bear it? Huh. Is your hair dyed? Ji Jing, you're already old and it's time to find a boyfriend. Your problems can be cured. Just squeeze in the bus more and you'll be fine. Han Qian remembered that the two women being questioned picked up their forks and aimed at Tong Yao's mouth. In total, this monster is not something that Han Qian can't do to her, but that ordinary people can't do anything to her. Go home. Han Qian was discharged from hospital with considerable momentum. 3 cars came to pick them up. Ji Jing's car was filled with Yu poems and nursery rhymes. The rest was a duel between Yan Qingqing and Nuan Nuan. Han Qian was too lazy to watch the two of them quarreling, so he stretched out his hand to stop a taxi and got in the car and left. Sweat formed on the driver's forehead as he drove. A Raptor overtook on a solid line, leading the way in front of the taxi at a speed of about 40, followed closely by a Panamera, and behind it was a BMW 5 Series. The driver never thought in his life that he could experience the feeling of being escorted by a convoy. Looking at the young man sitting in the passenger seat with his arms hanging, the driver asked tentatively. Little brother, are you injured and have just been discharged from the hospital? You must be careful. Did you fall or get hit? The bullet penetrated the lute bone. Han Qian told the truth, and the driver immediately lost his composure. He immediately sat up straight and drove seriously, and then spoke tentatively. Not long ago, I heard that something happened over at Yuanjia Kailong. A young man was taken away by gangsters. Yes, that's me. The driver slowed down and asked seriously when he drove there. After a long time, he took a deep breath and asked again. Then this Raptor also has a Porsche behind it? Is BMW your friend? Friends? I think they want to kill me. Drive seriously. The driver drove really seriously, not daring to blink an eyelid along the way. He drove for more than 10 minutes and drove for more than 20 minutes. Yan Qingqing, who was leading the way, was so angry that he kept swearing. Finally, we arrived at the place. Han Qian, after getting off the car, he whispered to the driver, "Remember to ask for a ride from the Raptor in front or the Panamera in the back." The taxi ran away. Han Qian stood there watching the taxi leave and sighed softly. There are still many good people in this world. Take pity on me, a sick person. At this time, Tong Yao and Yu Shisai got out of the car, and the remaining 3 women were still in the car. When the security guard saw Tong Yao, he stood up quickly and opened the railing to let several cars into the community without asking. 3 luxury cars drove into the community together and passed by the basketball court. The young men in the court were stunned when they looked at the 3 women sitting in the driver's seat. Beauty. Luxury car? A car costing more than 1 million yuan is no longer cheap for ordinary people. The worst BMW costs 5 to 6 million yuan. The most important thing is that they have met these 3 women and they are the teacher's confidant. The teacher is back. The boys gave up basketball and all lay down on the guardrail. As expected, the teacher came back wearing a suit. At this moment, Han Qian was shining in their eyes. Because there were 2 women behind the teacher, one was an intellectual beauty with glasses they had seen before, and the other was a mixed-race beauty who made the blood in their bodies burn. Blonde hair, blue eyes, long legs and pert butt, sexy style. When Han Qian passed by the basketball court, the boys had automatically stood in a row and shouted in unison. "Welcome home, teacher." The neat shout scared Han Qian, who alerted him and looked at these children strangely. Do they all know nursery rhymes? He turned his head to look at nursery rhyme, who was also confused, and said softly, "Are you a student?" Tong Yao slowly turned her head to look at Han Qian and said softly, "They seem to be calling you. What can they learn from you? Can you play basketball? In those days? Okay, you little weakling, stop talking and let's go." If she didn't say that nursery rhymes were hated by others, she would poke them wherever their wounds were. Finally home. He hadn't walked through this door for more than half a month. When he walked to the door, Han Qian raised his hand to pat his head. In an instant, 3 hands held his wrist. There was a bit of expectation in the eyes of nursery rhyme and Yu Shisai. When Nuan glared at Han Qian and frowned. "What are you going to do again? You've just been discharged from the hospital and you want to go back again? What did you forget?" Han Qian frowned. "I forgot to pay the rent to my eldest sister. I'll just go to the supermarket and give it to my eldest sister when I go to buy food later." When he mentioned the rent, Han Qian thought of something. He had tens of thousands of dollars in his card, but after paying the rent, water, electricity, and heating bills, there was only a few left to live on. He was still thinking of giving it to his mother during the new year. Building a house. Some headache. When Nuan opened the door with the key, the door to the room next door that had been unoccupied for a long time suddenly opened. A young man with fair hair and short hair smiled at Han Qian. "Hello, I'm the one who just moved here. My name is Zheng Zheng." Han Qian grinned and stretched out his hand. "Hello, my name is Unserious." Boom. Yan Qingqing slapped his butt, and Han Qian grinned again. "Hello, Han Qian. I like to joke around. My head has been a little irritated recently, so please forgive me." Zheng Zheng smiled gently again. "Tens of thousands. Humble Qian. Not too modest." The 2 looked at each other and smiled, then closed the door and returned to the house. Han Qian also walked into his little nest. The moment he walked into the room, Han Qian frowned and exited. The warm and closed door had already entered. He took a deep breath helplessly and said helplessly, "Uncle Han. Can we just make do with it? No one has been back for half a month. Yan Qingqing covered her head and sighed as she walked into the room. Han Qian's brows furrowed even more as she changed into slippers. Yan Qingqing walked into the bathroom and took out a rag, saying the same feebly. "Can you come in first? I'll start cleaning up now." Then Ji Jing continued. "I can help tidy up the bedroom with just a little effort." Nursery rhyme followed. "Leave the kitchen to me." Han Qian walked into the door, slowly squatted down and scratched the floor tiles with his fingers. Looking at the dust on his fingers, Han Qian felt bad all over, as if there were many ants biting him. Yu Shisai had a smile on his face. He walked into Han Qian's house doubtfully, looked up and down and sat on the sofa. When Yu Shisai sat down, Han Qian's eyes were full of conflict. Yu Shisai looked at the four busy women and said doubtfully. "Xiao Nuan, what happened to your ex-husband? Why didn't you come in when you got home?" When Nuan, who was clumsily organizing the coffee table and dining table in the living room, sighed feebly. "It's because the room is too dirty and he doesn't want to come in. He has mysophobia, so please leave him alone." Yu Shisai looked at the floor tiles and then at the sofa, wondering. "Isn't this pretty clean?" Warmth sighed again. "Hey. You don't understand. When you know it, you won't say that. To be honest, I feel a little dirty." Yu Shisai stood up and looked at the house. Where was it dirty? Han Qian at the door couldn't help it anymore, lowered his head and said tremblingly. You all go out, those who need to buy groceries, and those who need to go get busy, I will take care of it myself." When Nuan was the first to put down what she was doing. She knew Han Qian too well. This man could make concessions on many things, but he could not give in at all when it came to room hygiene. Come with me to buy groceries. Teacher Tong's cooking skills are very good." Teacher Tong, okay. Ji Jing walked down the second floor and said softly. "Ching Ching, let's go downstairs. I think my nephew's quilt is too thin. It's getting cold. The clothes in his wardrobe are okay, but there are too few underwear and no warmth." The five women went downstairs. Han Qian looked at the room in front of him, took a deep breath and walked in with his eyes closed. Another fierce battle. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 204. In the Japanese food courtyard, Gao Xing'ai picked up a piece of raw venison with serving chopsticks and put it on the plate, smiling. Han Qian was discharged from the hospital today. Do you two have anything to say? Li Dehai was wearing a white kimono with black prints and said softly while holding a wine glass with an expressionless face. It's good to be discharged from the hospital. There are many people looking forward to his discharge from the hospital, right? Mr. Lin. Lin Zongheng gritted his teeth and lowered his head and said in a deep voice. What I want to see is him die at sea. Those fishermen who found him have been disqualified from going to sea. How troublesome. Li Dehai, Lin Zongheng, Gao Xingxing. The three guys got together. Gao Yuxing smiled, picked up the wine glass and poured wine, and said with a smile. There is no need for the three of us to hide. This Han Qian has caused me a big loss. Because of your son's affairs, I am not allowed to bow my head to him in the company. There is another matter that I don't know if Director Li knows about. After saying that, Gao Xingxing held up the wine glass with both hands. Li Dehai held the wine glass with one hand. When clinking the glasses, Li Dehai stretched out his hand to press Gao Xingxing's glass with one finger. Gao Xingxing smiled and said again. Han Qian came to me and wanted to join forces with me to make your son leave the Glory Group completely. I agreed. Li Dehai's face was still expressionless, and Lin Zong hung on the side frowned and looked at Gao Xing, who drank the sake in one gulp and said with a smile. The grudge between Han Qian and I originated from Yan Qingqing. Han Qian is now helping Yan Qingqing secure the position of chairman. At this time, Han Qian still doesn't know that the competition between Yan Qingqing and I is far from this position. Now Han Qian being valued by Director Qian should be because he values Han Qian's ability and wants Han Qian to support Qianwan to gradually gain rights in the company. I think Director Li is already tired of Gu's rule of not intervening in company matters, right? He. Li Dehai's reaction was very dull, and Gao Jingxing's expression gradually turned gloomy. It seemed that Li Dehai was not the breakthrough. Supermarket. The two groups met by chance. Tong Yao said calmly while pushing the cart to select the ingredients that should be prepared for dinner. Wen Nuan lives in this home. Mr. Yan is Han Qian's boss and cares about his subordinates. I want to know why you two stay here? Do you want to earn a living? It started again. Ji Jing picked the vegetables in a calm mood and said softly. Vice President Wen, Han Qian is a shrimp eater, right? Nuan looked at the crabs in the pool and replied casually. Eat it, but don't let him see the shrimp being cooked alive. He won't be able to eat a few. He said it's troublesome to pick the shrimp. Then buy some. When I first went to college, I had a job where I was responsible for picking shrimps and crabs for customers. Then can you make crabs? Will do. Buy some. River crab or sea crab? I didn't pick this one. Ji Jing cleverly found her reason to stay here. Yu Shisai thought about it for a long time and laughed softly. I'm pretty and delicious. After saying this, the four girls looked at her at the same time, their eyes full of contempt. Yan Qingqing curled her lips and said. If you can see the beauty in Han Qian's eyes, I can offer you incense and water to wash your feet. There will be many times when he doesn't distinguish whether the other person is a man or a woman, so forget about you, a big vase. That makes sense. It was rare that Wen Nuan agreed with Yan Qingqing for once. It's a pity that they still underestimated Yu Shisai, she smiled. Is it okay if I have a thick skin? Xianyuan, you have 3 rooms in your house. Can you use the guest room on the first floor? No, I can rent you an apartment near the company. Wen Nuan directly rejected Yu Shisai's proposal, and then started to select crabs. After cleaning up, they left the supermarket together. During this period, Wen sent the rent money to the landlord's sister, which made Yan Qingqing jealous beyond recognition. Why did the landlord's sister accept Wen Nuan? Don't accept her? Downstairs, Nuan was sitting on the steps, with a flyer spread under his buttocks, his chin in his hands, looking at the canteen in the distance, and said softly. When I couldn't sleep at night, I would drag the reluctant Han Qian downstairs with me to buy popsicles. Do you know what popsicles are? It's ice cream. The first time my father-in-law asked me if I wanted to eat popsicles, I thought it was ice cubes. My father-in-law would buy 3 ice cream sticks every time. My mother-in-law's one cost 1 yuan, and mine one's 1 yuan. Hey, Han Qian could only eat 50 cents. He resisted this many times, but he couldn't. It's of no use, he. Listening to Wen Nuan's words, Tong Yao tilted her head and thought about it. The 50-cent popsicles seemed to be the kind of sugar water ice cubes. She actually liked eating them. Ji Jing smiled and said nothing. Yan, who was standing not far from Nuan Wen, Qingqing wanted to turn his head and smash this woman to death. As long as you know it yourself, what are you showing off to? Nuan squinted his eyes, but his gentle face gradually became depressed, and he lowered his head and whispered. I thought Han Qian didn't like eating crabs. Later I found out that his family was in a difficult situation when he was a child. We bought crabs at home, but he knew how to touch them. He told me that if you haven't eaten them, you won't know what they taste like. I will think about it, and I will gradually develop this habit now. Sometimes I really feel sorry for him. You haven't seen Han Qian when he was at his most difficult. If you had seen him at his most difficult time, in the iron heart it will also be soft. As she spoke, Wen Nuan raised her head. She remembered the first day after she got married to Han Qian that she came home from get off work. Han Qian, who was wearing this apron, stood awkwardly at the dining table. He didn't dare to sit down. He looked at her with an anxious expression. Wen Nuan vaguely remembered what he was thinking at the time. Is this good-for-nothing man really the Han Qian who dares to go astray? Wen Nuan had not found this answer since the divorce. It was not until Han Qian walked up to her, threw away the pistol, and knocked out the gangster who grabbed her hair with more than a dozen guns pointed at her head that Nuan Wen got the answer she had always wanted. Han Qian will do anything for the people he cares about. None of the women present spoke. Nuan glanced at the time, stood up and patted her butt. Come on, let's go upstairs. He should have packed up. Several people went upstairs, and when Wen Nuan opened the door, Han Qian had just walked out of the bathroom. Looking at the room in front of him, Yu Shisai finally understood why the women just acted like Han Qian was not surprised. The floor tiles can be used as mirrors, the sofa has no wrinkles and is angular, and the furnishings on the coffee table are neat. For a moment she wondered if the place she lived in when she was abroad was a pig's nest. Wen Nuan smiled at Han Qian and said softly, "Take a break." Han Qian pointed to the second floor. "The sheets haven't been changed yet. Just let me go. You can go to the guest room and lie down for a while. Teacher Tong and Manager Ji will go to cook. I bought crabs. You won't be able to bear it after seeing them." Han Qian shrugged, nodded, and said softly, "You don't have to wake me if I'm asleep. Don't worry, I will definitely not let you fall asleep. I will accompany you to lie down." After saying this, Wen Nuan was about to go to the guest room. As soon as he took a step, there was an extra hand on his shoulder. Yan Qingqing said with a cold face, "Go. Wash the dishes." "I'll wash the dishes." After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, A Huan. Chapter 205. Leaning on the bedside with the computer on his lap, Han Qian thought of everything he could think of, but he couldn't find what Feng Lun sent. Where did the grandson want to send it to him? Han Qian thought of everything he could think of. "I thought about it all, but unfortunately I still couldn't find it." Han Qian closed his eyes and thought of himself as Feng Lun to think about the safest way. Email, Qian, text messages, etc. were not safe. Li Jinhai could monitor Han Qian's phone calls, so he would have a way to intercept Han Qian's email and short message. It is impossible for him to go through the internet channels. But if someone is abroad, how can they bring information to Han Qian? When Han Qian was puzzled, Yan Qingqing tiptoed open the door, smiled sweetly at Han Qian, then locked the door and walked towards Han Qian with squinted eyes. Han Qian, who was thinking about something, didn't notice this woman. He came closer, and when he raised his head, a fox face was only 5 centimeters away from his lips. Han Qian looked at Yan Qingqing blankly and said softly, "Are there any flowers on my face?" Yan Qingqing gave Han Qian a wink and said charmingly, "Do you think it looks like a flower?" "Yeah. It's so beautiful." "Then kiss me." Faced with such a rude request, Han Qian fell silent, lowered his head and continued to look at the computer on his lap. Han Qian even knew what Yan Qingqing meant to him. Han Qian thought it was Yan Qingqing's temporary interest. It's just a sense of freshness, it's about competing with Wen Nuan. After a long time, she will get tired of it and she will naturally stop pestering Han Qian. So what Han Qian wanted to do was stop here and not get any closer. If he was asked to say those hurtful words, and Han Qian said it, he would rather get hurt and be misunderstood. If Han Qian was crueler, Nuan would not live in this house. What is the reason for so many peach blossoms? Aren't you still soft-hearted? Seeing that Han Qian was not fooled, Yan Qingqing sighed in frustration. My dear, I have been practicing for many years. How come it doesn't work at all in front of a little scholar like you? Han Qian raised his head and looked at Yan Qingqing, smiling. Tell me, Qingqing, if you were Feng Lun, how would you tell me Luo Shanda's crime? Call. Without even thinking about it, Han Qian knew that he couldn't ask her, so he leaned against the bed and sighed. Go on, get out. I'll fight with you as soon as it gets warm. Don't you get tired of fighting? Yan Qingqing leaned forward, narrowed her eyes and smiled. She called Wei Tiancheng and asked him to properly discipline his daughter, Han Qian. Did you get injured in that area after you were injured? Let me see if you are injured. After saying this, the girl dived into the cup. Han Qian was so frightened that he pressed the cup and hid behind it. When Yan Qingqing had already grabbed Han Qian's waistband, the door was pushed open. Nuan held a pan in his left hand. With black stains from the bottom of the pot on her face, she reached out and grabbed Yan Qingqing's back and dragged her directly out of the door. Yan Qingqing's head was still screaming inside the quilt. Wen Zhuiying, please let me go, my breasts, breasts. Don't grab my breast straps. Gradually, Yan Qingqing stopped struggling. She held her arms in her arms and looked at Wen Nuan coldly, frowning. I locked the door, how did you get in? Wen Nuan deliberately stood on tiptoe, looked at Yan Qingqing with disdain from top to bottom, and said arrogantly. I am the mistress of this house, I must have the key. So you planted the strawberries on Han Qian's neck last time. He also lives in this room, and he also locked the door. Wen Nuan's face changed instantly. He hesitated without saying a word, ignored Yan Qingqing and turned around to leave. Yan Qingqing caught her this time, and he would not let her go so easily. Then there were quarrels in the living room. After about 10 minutes, Ji Jing came to the door and asked Han Qian if he needed to close the door. Han Qian shook his head and laughed softly. Aunt Ji, if you said Feng Lun wanted to send me a letter, what method would he use? Ji Jing gently shook her head at Han Qian. I'm stupid, you'd better ask Qingqing about this matter. Her? Forget it. Amid the quarrel between the women, dinner was ready. No wonder it took more than an hour to prepare. With so many dishes, Han Qian once thought it was the Chinese New Year. Then Han Qian discovered that he had encountered some trouble. He was injured on his right arm and was holding it in his left hand. It was very difficult to eat with a spoon, especially the stewed chicken in that pot. After several failed attempts, after Han Qian gave up, Ji Jing picked up a chicken leg and put it in Han Qian's bowl. Ji Jing never concealed her kindness to Han Qian, and she didn't care about what others said. Qian smiled and said that Aunt Ji felt sorry for him, which aroused the hatred of Wen Nuan and Yan Qingqing. When Tong Yao was about to speak, Han Qian said quickly. Strange, nursery rhyme, I have a question to ask you and see if you have any comments. Strange. Tong Yao frowned, and Han Qian quickly said again. If someone wants to tell me something, but he can't call, send text messages, or send emails, and he's not around yet, how should he tell me? Tong Yao put a piece of brittle bone into her mouth, frowned and looked at Han Qian and asked. You mean Feng Lun? If the internet doesn't work, just write a letter. Originally, he just wanted to stop Tong Yao from quarreling with Ji Jing, but when the monster gave such an answer, Han Qian was confused and frowned. Write a letter? To me? Will the police keep an eye on me? Tong Jiao looked at Han Qian like a fool, frowned and said with disdain. I finally know why you came back alive. Feng Lun really didn't want to kill you, so why did he give you the letter? You admitted in the hotel with great fanfare that Wen Nuan and Yan Qingqing are your women, and they are from two big companies. Boss, the letter can be sent to the company, and then they will forward it to you. Are you stupid? Han Qian asked again. But Feng Lun is abroad. Is he a scorpion? A loner? Qin Hui still has 2 or 3 friends. Friend? Now the reward for arresting Feng Lun has exceeded 1 million. Do you think Feng Lun won't give them money to shut their mouths? Han Qian, did you enter the university through the back door? You used to cook, but now you are injured. These 3.5 idiots can't do it. Who cooked this meal? Not enlightened. Han Qian had no intention of refuting the scolding. It was really possible for Tong Yao to say so. Yan Qingqing asked shamelessly in a low voice if the other half was her. However, Tong Yao ignored him and instead gave Ji Jing some food and whispered, "Thank you for your hard work." This monster made everyone at the table lose their temper. After the meal, Han Qian stood on the balcony smoking. The 2 guys who were in charge of finishing the brushing were Yu Shisai and Yan Qingqing, who were lazy before the meal, but there was still a girl left at the dinner table, who was humming the crab hard. Ji Jing was sitting on the sofa holding her stomach and watching TV. They completely regard this place as their home. Tong Yao walked out of the bathroom, looked at Han Qian's back and spoke softly. Don't be in a hurry to go to sleep at night. There are some tendons and pig's trotters stewed in the pot. The blood in your body has flowed into the sea to feed the fish. The doctor told you to replenish it. Pig's trotters beauty treatment. Nuan put down the crab in her hand. Ji Jing stood up and said to go downstairs for a run and exercise. Nursery rhymes cooking skills completely captivated them. It doesn't matter whether Han Qian eats or not, they want to eat. Han Qian stood in front of the balcony and looked down at the phone in his hand. The same number rang twice. Han Qian closed his eyes and sighed. It's cloudy. There are only 2 today. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 206. All the women in the house went downstairs for a walk. Han Qian stood in front of the window and lit a second cigarette when his cell phone rang again. The 4th time. Han Qian took a deep breath and pressed the answer button. He didn't speak, and the other party was also silent. After more than 10 seconds, Han Qian hung up the phone and called back directly, saying 2 words. Han Qian. Report your own home. The other party was silent for a few seconds, and then said in a deep voice. Where is Feng Lun? Hearing this voice, Han Qian narrowed his eyes and smiled. Prosecutor Feng is recovering well. Don't you think it's better to ask this question to the Yamanman instead of asking me, a small citizen? I ask you where Feng Lun is. Han Qian, you'd better not play tricks with me. I can put Feng's Haida and his son in jail, and I can also put you in jail. Don't worry, you won't have this chance again. After saying that, Han Qian hung up the phone and looked at the dark sky outside, shouting anxiously in his heart, Feng Lun, your grandson, you must move faster, you must move faster. Han Qian is powerful now, but at the same time he is in an extremely dangerous state. Feng Lun's performance made everyone think that Han Qian knew the secret of the entire Yamanman. He put out the cigarette butts, opened the window and threw it out. At this time, the phone rang again, and this time Han Qian answered it without even thinking. Hello, Han Qian. There was a heavy breathing sound on the other side of the phone, as if he was making a difficult decision, but Han Qian only heard 3 words. Thank you. Han Qian simply hung up the phone. Ill. When Han Qian was about to turn around, Guan Degu called and got straight to the point. Brother Han, a group of people sneaked in recently. My master asked if you need anything. I don't need protection. I just want to meet you when we have time. No, Brother Han, I'm asking you if you need. Guan Degu's voice was a little anxious, and this time Han Qian directly cursed. Are you a humming idiot? I said I don't need it. Now I want a gun to protect myself. Do you have one? You don't have one. I'll go to your place tomorrow. Daegu was stunned by the scolding and looked at the phone that had been hung up. He looked at Tu Xiao with an aggrieved look. At this moment, Daegu was holding a cold and dark pistol in his hand. Tu Xiao smiled. He shook his head at Yun Biao. Biozi, don't blame Han Qian. He should be protecting us. That black-faced Mr. Bao should be monitoring Han Qian's cell phone. If you meet in the future, we will contact him. Put away the gun and send a few younger brothers to kidnap his uncle. In our community, people at the government office don't dare to mess around, but those guys don't care about that. I understand. Where is the eldest lady? No one dares to touch my daughter, Tu Xiao, in this city. Their family is not strong enough to kill her. Half of Tu Xiao's self-confidence comes from his influence in the city, and the other half comes from Li Jinhai. The black-faced Mr. Bao has a tough head, and he knows better than anyone how much trouble he will cause if he touches Tu Xiao's daughter. Back then, Tu Xiao was a gangster who followed the boss, and Li Jinhai was still a small policeman. They had conflicts. But a year later, Li Jinhai became the second in command of the city bureau, and Tu Xiao became the gang boss. There was less conflict between them. Han Qian sat on the sofa and looked at the roof. He called Qianling with his mobile phone and told Qianling directly that things did not seem to go as he expected. There was a big deviation. The matter about Li Dehai might have to be put aside. Once she was released, Qianling didn't say anything. She just told Han Qian to pay attention to his safety and call her immediately if necessary. After hanging up the phone, Han Qianbai took a deep breath like this. How did his life become like this? But Han Qian felt the slightest regret in his heart. Instead, he felt that his blood was boiling. If he walked away like an ordinary person, after finishing this life, that is the real failure. Surprises, excitement and an unpredictable tomorrow are what Han Qian wants. It was getting dark, and the door of the room rang. When Nuan came back with his tired body, he walked into the room and went straight to the second floor. As he walked, he said that there was no need to call her at night. She didn't want to do anything except take a bath and sleep. Then you walked in the door. Poetry, this mixed-race girl didn't know when she changed into a sports vest and sweatpants. She is not afraid of the cold today. But I have to say that her waist really surpasses the waist of all the women Han Qian has seen. The perfect curvature matches the waistcoat line and the sweat on it. Yushisai, a sporty woman, is a beauty, but Han Qian just looks at it. He glanced at it, not that he didn't want to see it, but that this mixed-race girl had been firing at him. Crispy and numb. Risk of electric shock. Yan Qingqing and Ji Jing were fine. They both exercised regularly. However, the last nursery rhyme came in holding the door open. She was worse than warm. Yan Qingqing took her pajamas and went up to the second floor. 2 bathrooms, 5 women taking baths. Han Qian turned the volume of the TV to the maximum. No matter what, he was still a man. 8 p.m. The warmth of the noisy sleep was gone. 5 women gathered together to play poker. Han Qian stood aside and watched with gusto. This card is a bit similar to Hero Kill. Someone will first reveal his identity as a player, and then choose the hand. Randomly match one card to another. The person with the same card as the player will be with the player, but this person will not expose himself easily. I have seen Tong Yao and Ji Jing throw their cards and leave in perfect coordination, and I have also seen the 2 idiots Wen Nuan and Yan Qingqing using their big cards to hammer each other's allies. In Nuan Wen's words, winning or losing doesn't matter, the main thing is to think. Yu Yan Qingqing. The 2 gradually began to engage in real-person PK. When the scene occurred, Han Qian had already returned to the guest room on the first floor to rest. Yan Qingqing always looked for opportunities to have sex in the guest room, and was caught by the warmth again and again. The other three women looked a little tired and discussed with each other to go back to the second floor to rest. The room where the three girls slept on the tatami was very spacious. Ji Jing asked in a low voice when they went upstairs. "Shi, do you grind your teeth while sleeping?" Yu Shisai forced a smile and nodded, while Tong Yao, who was walking behind, tilted his head and asked in confusion. "Teeth grinding? We both slept all night and didn't hear anything. She didn't make any sound while she was sleeping. I woke up several times and was worried that she was dead." After hearing this, Ji Jing smiled. She lay on the bed with her clothes on, and nursery rhymes fell asleep in the middle. Yan Qingqing on the first floor finally won. She found the key to Nuan's collection and threw it in along the crack of Han Qian's door, then returned to the second floor with a provocative look. The two of them slept together again tonight. It wasn't the first time anyway, they were already used to it. When Yan Qingqing got up and went to the toilet, Wen Nuan instantly got up. The two of them were in a stalemate. In another room, the moment Yu Shisai turned over, Tong Yao spoke. "Stop joining in the fun, you will be beaten to death by the two of them. Ji Jing, you should also sleep. Don't think about being a monster while I'm here." Yu Shisai was stunned, and Ji Jing let out a cold snort. Late at night, Han Qian suddenly woke up from his sleep. His eyes were covered by a cold hand. Han Qian fell into a drowsy sleep. When he opened his eyes again, he was confused. "Who is it?" This time Han Qian learned to be smart. He checked his appearance first to make sure there was nothing unusual. When he walked out of the door, he found it was unlocked. Looking at the women outside, Han Qian was sure that it was not a dream last night. "Who is it? Did my serious first kiss just disappear like this?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 207. I'm going to Tu Xiao's place. You can just go and do your own things. Nuan, Qing, you too, remember to receive the letters for me. As long as it's for you two, be sure to read it before throwing it away. Han Qian put on his clothes with Ji Jing's help, and Yan Qingqing, who was applying lipstick in the bathroom, replied softly. I told Yang Xia, I can't see you off today. I have to go to Director Qian. Hearing this, Han Qian nodded, looked at Ji Jing who was standing at the door waiting for nursery rhymes, and said softly. Aunt Ji will go back to the company today too. Ji Jing nodded, and then urged Tanjeo to hurry up, he was almost late for work, and then Tanjeo stumbled down the stairs, and the two of them went out together. As soon as they left, Nuan threw Xiahong's car keys to Yu PoortoRich. Shisai, please go back to the company and help me pick up the express delivery or letters. Xiahong, please drive away first. You can take care of today's work matters on my behalf. Yu Shisai took the car keys and asked with a frown. You want to take a break again? Now the company. Nuan nodded, then pointed at Han Qian and spoke to Yu Shisai. When he has time to deal with me, a yellow-faced woman, the company's affairs won't be a problem. That's it? Now that Han Qian has been discharged from the hospital, everyone is busy with their own affairs. Yan Qingqing is able to squeeze out so much time to be lazy and take care of Han Qian. This is also due to Han Daxian who made Gao Jixi become honest. Han Qian and Wen were the only ones left in the room. Wen sat on the sofa and looked at Han Qian and said seriously. Come here. Han Qian tilted his head and walked toward Wen Nuan in confusion. He turned his head to the other side and was still confused. Wen Nuan raised one leg and put it on the sofa, looking at Han Qian and frowning. Han Qian, there is something we need to discuss seriously. Looking at Wen Nuan, it didn't look like he was joking. Han Qian also sat up straight, frowned and said softly. You say. Warmth is very direct. How do you view your relationship with me, and what are your plans for other relationships around you? Don't tell me that you didn't mess with other little girls. I know your character, and I also know that you didn't. Go and provoke them, but that doesn't mean they won't provoke you. This matter also gave Han Qian a headache. He frowned and sighed, then Wen Nuan continued. Yan Qingqing has changed since the accident at the party. She used to just want to compete with me, but now she doesn't have this simple idea. She just likes you and is very aggressive towards you. If you like Yan Qingqing, I can leave to make room for you. Han Qian was a little confused. When he slowly raised his head to look at Wen Nuan, he found that she was holding a pair of scissors in her hand. How to answer this? Han Qian took a deep breath, exhaled, and said softly. I also know that my current emotional line is a bit confusing. Compared with these, I believe you should know my character better than anyone else. In the past few years, the only thing that has hurt you is the divorce. But after the divorce, I took on debt and left the house I lived in for 3 years, and why did you become the mistress of this house? Do you know the reason? I know that you don't want to embarrass my mother and Lao Wen more than me, and you don't want to embarrass the Wen family. And I can be sure of one thing now. I like you much, much more than you like me, and I know your heart is crueler than anyone else. Wen Nuan understands, has always understood, so she never asks her how much status she holds in Han Qian's heart. Compared with Han Qian's father-in-law and mother-in-law, Wen is still lighter. Han Qian pressed his left hand on Wen's knee and said with a smile. It's too difficult for a guy like me to say the word like. I think these 2 words represent actions, not words. If I don't like you, how can I take advantage of you after hearing that someone wants to bully you? I went to fight for them with my gun. Yan Qingqing showed me the kindness of knowing me and helping me. Ji Jing was more grateful and grateful to me. In fact, it is not as serious as you think. Wen Nuan looked at Han Qian suspiciously, with the word disbelief almost written on his face. Seeing this, Han Qian smiled again. I think Yan Qingqing is more curious and competitive with me. Once she gets to know me, she will lose interest. Even if I pursue someone else, maybe they will ignore me, just like you now. Likewise, you treat me more because my proposal for divorce is hard for you to accept because of your pride. When you let me belong to you again, you will get rid of me. Don't say you don't think so, at least not now. After she finished speaking, Han Qian's face was full of self-mockery, and her warm eyes screamed with anger as if she wanted to explain something, but she didn't speak, stood up and took Han Qian's left hand. Go out. As soon as the 2 walked out of the door, Zheng Jing, who had just moved in, came out carrying a bag of garbage. Zheng Jing smiled at Han Qian and Wen Nuan. Is the young couple having a conflict? Han Qian nodded awkwardly, and then was dragged into the elevator by Wen Nuan. Wen Nuan drove seriously without saying a word, stepped on the accelerator deeply, and Han Qian didn't speak. The topic they just had was very heavy, just like lifting a fig leaf, at least that's what Han Qian thought. Gradually, Han Qian found that the direction was wrong. This was not the way to Tuxiao. Han Qian did not dare to ask, because it was as warm as an iceberg. The air conditioner in the car was turned on very low. To put it warmly, it is easy to walk in hot weather. Sweat and your wounds are more susceptible to infection. I don't know if this truth can be explained. The car stopped unreasonably on the side of the road. Get off. Wen Nuan only said 2 words. As soon as Han Qian closed the car door, his left hand was grabbed again and he was dragged into Abo Communications by Wen. When he came to the counter, Wen took out his bank card and slapped it on the counter, looking so indifferent. I want a pair of cell phones. Buy again? Han Qian leaned close to Wen Nuan and whispered. I don't get along with my mobile phone. While talking, the salesperson in front of the counter had already taken out a pair of mobile phones. They were from Vivo. They were not expensive and they were really a pair. One was blue and the other was red. Wen Nuan took out the mobile phone directly from Han Qian's pocket and put his own. I took out the mobile phone that I had temporarily used to recharge. Hers had been thrown into the sea by Feng Lun. After loading the cards on the two mobile phones, Nuan grabbed Han Qian's collar with one hand, put the mobile phone in his pocket with the other, and threatened in a cold voice. If you dare to break it, I'll give you a crooked head. Pulling Han Qian out, the salesperson looked at the two of them with confused eyes. The display machine was just taken away. Wen Nuan didn't think so much and took Han Qian to the old department store again. A pair of diamond rings was not cheap. Wen Nuan put the ring on Han Qian's ring finger and said coldly. You said that I just want to take revenge on you for asking for divorce, right? Okay, you're right, that's what I think. I also tell you that if you dare to take off the ring, I will take off my finger. I'll chop it up for you to eat. Han Qian frowned at Nuan and said softly. There's no need for this. Nothing dealing with you. After the words fell, Sales said softly from the side. Madam, this pair of diamond rings cost 199,000 yuan. There is an event in the store now, so you can buy them. Swipe your card. Okay ma'am. After leaving the department store, getting in the car and leaving, Han Qian frowned at Wen Nuan and said with some dissatisfaction. Even if you want to vent your anger, you don't want to spend money like this. In fact, I want a thumb ring more. That thing is more domineering. Wen Nuan glared ahead and roared. Do you think I'm giving you a gift? I can buy whatever I like, and bring whatever I tell you to bring, Han Qian. It was you who proposed the divorce. It was you who didn't want me anymore. Now I want to take revenge on you. What's wrong? I also tell you, if you dare to take off your virginity before your money is repaid, I will not let you go. Han Qian closed his eyes and sighed. What was the wrong thing to say? Why was she so impatient? After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, A Huan. Chapter 208. When he walked into Tu Xiao's office, Huan Wen's face was still ugly. He walked to the small golf ball, picked up the club and hit the golf ball. The next second, both Han Qian and Tu Xiao closed their eyes. Is it still impossible to beat this? Wen Nuan looked at the golf ball on the ground in shock. Didn't he hit it? Then he swung the club again, and this time he hit it, but it hit the ground. Han Qian closed his eyes and shook his head feebly. Warmth seemed to have nothing to do with any sports. I really couldn't bear to watch it. Han Qian sat on the sofa and licked his lips at Tu Xiao. The latter smiled and took out a box of Zonghua from the drawer. He was about to throw it to Han Qian when Nuan came over and stretched out his hand to grab the cigarette. Returning to the golf course, he smoked the cigarette as if it were a golf ball. Seeing this, Han Qian stood up and walked forward with a frown. He bent down, picked up the cigarette and said with a frown. Don't be endless. I have my cell phone and my ring. Don't involve Boss 2 in our affairs. The person who only smokes cigars has prepared a box of cigarettes. He's taking me seriously. If you have a temper, don't worry. Family fun. Holding the cigarette in his right hand, he took Nuan back to the sofa with his left hand and smiled awkwardly at Tu Xiao. We had some conflicts when we came here. Where is my brother Guan? Tu Xiao chuckled. He went out to do some business, I want him to come back. Han Qian opened the cigarette but didn't smoke. The main reason was that his hands were inconvenient. He could hold things fine, but his shoulders hurt a lot if he exerted a little force. The warmth would definitely not help him, so he could only give up, put down the cigarette and shook his head gently. No, I just came here to say that my phone was being monitored. I wasn't angry at him on the phone. It was because my phone was being monitored. Feng Lun called me once. Tu Xiao narrowed his eyes and said calmly. He is planning to trap you to death. Now Li Jinhai is not the only one who is staring at you in the city. The child is her uncle. As a family, let me ask you something. Do you know about the Yamen Gate? Evidence of these guys' crimes. Han Qian smiled naively at Tu Xiao. Such a reaction made Tu Xiao know the answer he wanted to know. Han Qian doesn't know. He only knows what everyone knows, but doesn't know the real evidence. Tu Xiao sighed softly. Feng Lun must have mentioned someone's crime when he called you, and he gave it to you without any courtesy, right? Han Qian tilted his head and twitched the corners of his mouth slightly, saying weakly. If we weren't close, I would have thought you were spying on me. He gave me the evidence of Luo Shanda's crime. Of course, I haven't received it yet. I asked him for it, boss too. Tell me how many people doubt me now. Do not know anything. Tu Xiao seemed to want to smoke at this moment, but he was a little embarrassed to light it. With a tangled look on his face, Han Qian couldn't help it anymore. He picked up the cigarette case and tried to tear it open with his teeth to take out a cigarette. He stood up and walked over to in front of Tu Xiao. Tu Xiao had already taken out the match. After smoking, the two brothers closed their eyes and raised their heads at the same time and took a puff of smoke. This is comfortable. Tu Xiao, who was smoking, gestured to the cigarette in Han Qian's hand and smiled. I know everything about the filter, but it doesn't matter whether I know about the cigarette butt that is going to be thrown away at the back. There are more than just a few hostages at the hotel party. Feng Lun now controls the life and death of this half of the Yamen. This is a bomb to some people, but to some people it is a treasure. It can bring successful people one step closer and allow failed people to make a comeback. Feng Lun contacted you, but Biozi called you. No reason. Han Qian stood in front of the table and pouted. You mean that Feng Lun will spread the news about calling me, and may even make Luo Shanda the first victim, and make those who stare at him turn their attention to me? Will I become a scapegoat? It's probably like this. Biozi is going to give you a gun for self-defense. It's not necessary. Do they still dare to commit murder in person? Well, Wen Nuan, you can go home and stay for a few days. Han Qian is not afraid, but it does not mean that he is not worried about the people around him. If some madman wants to attack Wen Nuan, Han Qian will regret it to death, but Tu Xiao tells Han Qian not to worry. Don't worry, no matter how crazy these guys are, they don't dare to attack Li Jinhai's niece. If they touch my sister-in-law, they won't even have access to the provincial government office. The army is not used to this. I'm worried that their target is still you. How about you get a gun permit? Boss 2, are you kidding me? I'm just a common man. It's okay if you let me play with a water gun. Don't say it. Wen Nuan actually gave me a gun. As soon as I fired, my father's father called me grandpa. What a thief. Man, do you know who is going to attack me now? Tu Xiao raised his eyebrows and glanced at Han Qian, then looked at Wen Nuan and said softly. The doctor said he injured his brain and didn't say this person is abnormal, right? What about dad and grandpa? Wen Nuan squinted at Han Qian and curled his lips. I bought him a toy gun a while ago. Tu Xiao looked stunned. Is he so childish? How old are you? Little Tu Kun stopped playing with toys when he was 5 years old. In the end, Tu Xiao didn't name the specific person. He just told Han Qian to be careful about Wei Tiancheng. This guy was not as honest as he thought. He also told Lu Shenga to be careful. He must have known about it. Party stuff. Wei Tiancheng? This guy's appearance rate has been quite high recently. On the other side, Li Jinhe had already arrived home. He put down his things and went to find someone to play mahjong. Li Jinhe played cards vigorously and shouted that he would never travel again. It was so boring. Why not just play mahjong at home? Sitting on her left, the sister Zhao Xiaoxiya, who frightened both Han Qian and Wen Nuan, asked softly whether Han Qian's injury was healed. Li Jinhe frowned, confused, and asked Han Qian was injured. As soon as these words came out, Zhao Xiya exclaimed on the spot. Jinhe, you don't know yet? Not long ago, some gangsters attacked Yuan Zhikailong's party. Xiao Nuan was also inside at that time, and a nephew of my bastard was also trapped inside. It is said that Xiao Qian was naked with his arms covered in blood. He pointed a gun at the head of the gangster leader Feng Lun, allowing Xiao Nuan to leave the scene safely. He was trapped in the hotel. The next night after the incident, I asked someone to inquire and found out that Xiao Qian was hospitalized. I was shot in the shoulder. When I went to visit, I was stopped by 2 black bodyguards. It is said that I lay in the intensive care unit for 4 days. What are you talking about? My son-in-law is holding a gun to Feng Lun's head. I did hear about Feng Lun, and Xianyuan was there at the time. I wouldn't believe it if you said this to anyone else, but I am my son-in-law. Let alone staring at Feng Lun's head, it's possible to shoot him. While talking, Li Jinhe had already pushed the mahjong and took out his mobile phone to call Han Qian. She knew Han Qian's character. Although he usually had no temper at all, if that kind of energy came up, he might kill someone on the spot. 12:30 noon. Han Qian sat on the sofa, and Wen Nuan sat next to Han Qian. The two of them stood close together with their heads lowered and said nothing. Li Jinhe's face was blue, and now Han Qian's face was still injured, and there were wounds on his head. Wearing a gauze net and his right arm hanging around his neck, Wen Shi had a gloomy face and smoked one cigarette after another. Li Jinhe closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and said softly. Nuan Nuan, are you hurt? No. Not hurt. The warm voice was as small as a mosquito. Li Jinhe breathed a sigh of relief, then looked at Han Qian and said calmly. Take off your clothes and let mom see. Han Qian raised his head and forced a smile and whispered that it was okay. Li Jinhe suddenly stood up. Han Qian quickly unzipped his sportswear to reveal his upper body. There was a bandage wrapped around his shoulders. Li Jinhe gritted his teeth and said. Punched through the shoulder? 92. M9? USP. Glock. Mark 19? Tell me, what on earth was shot? Han Qian braced himself and whispered. It seems, Mom, you ask me that, I don't know what kind of gun it is. I think they all look the same. I only heard Feng Lun shooting at me in a low voice and at a very fast rate. The bullet didn't penetrate the shoulder, it got stuck inside. It's okay, Mom, look, I'm still fine. A good sentence made the tough Li Jinhe's eyes turn red instantly. He looked at Han Qian's shoulder and cursed angrily. Are you okay? My precious son-in-law's shoulder was shot through with a gun. Is he okay? Your shoulder doesn't hurt. My heart hurts. Wenshu. I don't care. My son-in-law was shot with a gun. I don't care about Feng Lun. I'm going to settle the score with Li Jinhe. I don't want to see Yuan Zhikailong again, and I don't want my daughter-in-law and son-in-law to feel shadowy when they see this hotel in the future. Wen Shi, who came from Han Qian and Nuan Nuan without saying a word, spoke in a hoarse voice. I've already made a call. The Yuan Zhikailong sign will be taken down before dark. Now I want the owners of shooting galleries in all the surrounding cities to come over and give Wen Shu an explanation. Don't force me to make it impossible for any of them to survive. Go down. Wen Shi stood up and sighed after smoking a cigarette. I'll go out and come back after dark. You two stay at home. Dad will cook for you when I get back. Is Wen Shi, who started from scratch and established Changxiang Group with Lin Mend, really just a useless scholar? No one would believe this even to death. There is no fourth update. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 209. The new district tea house is about to become a mahjong parlor for high-quality enjoyment. When she, who does not play cards, sat on the mahjong table, holding a cigarette in his mouth and touching the cards. There were 3 people about his age sitting on this table. Man. Just looking at the appearance is not a bad thing, when she touched the card and said softly. You all know what happened in Yuanjia Kailong, right? We are all brothers, and there is no need for me to hide it from you. The young man who put the gun to Feng Lun's head is my son-in-law, and stabbed Feng Lun with a screwdriver. I am also the son-in-law who has the right leg. In this big city like ours, you 3 are the only ones who have the means to get guns. Can you tell me something? Seeing that the 3 people who were not good at each other shook their heads, when she sneered, pushed the cards on the table and sneered. I, Wen Shu, don't care about anyone, and I, as my son-in-law, count as half. You'd better give me an explanation. Don't even have a chance to sit down and drink tea. I bought your business, and you still have to scold me. My gentle words are nothing, don't say I didn't give you a head start. On this cold day, the man sitting opposite Wen Shi was wearing an undershirt. The tendons on his body were about to burst the undershirt. He raised his head and frowned. Wen Shi, don't be so unreasonable. You will do the acquisition if you say it will be acquired? Is it your decision? Wen Shi lowered his head and glanced at the mahjong on the table and said sarcastically. Luo Hong, you don't need to know whether what I said counts or not. I only know that what you said doesn't count. You can make your own decision. After saying that, Wen Shu left the tea house and drove away in his Mercedes-Benz that he hadn't used for a long time. The 3 people who stayed in the tea house looked at each other and sighed. In such a big circle, how could they not know who gave him the gun? When she left the tea house and went directly to the 8th district. He just said a word to Tu Xiao. Who gave Feng Lun the gun? Wei Tianchang. When she turned around and left. Tu Xiao stood up and stopped in front of Wen Shi, frowning. What are you going to do? Fight with Wei Tianchang? The matter belongs to Han Qian. It is Han Qian's decision how to deal with it. I also received some gossip. When she looked at Tu Xiao and said indifferently. My daughter was frightened, and my son-in-law was shot. Whoever gave me the gun is the one I want to settle the account with. Don't stop me, or I won't mind taking you with me. As soon as he finished speaking, before Tu Xiao could speak, Wen Shi's cell phone rang, and Li Jin he said in a calm voice. Come back, I'm hungry. I'm going to buy groceries. When she pushed Tu Xiao away and left. He wanted to settle the score with Wei Tianchang. Tu Xiao's persuasion had no effect, but his wife's words of hungry made him put down everything he was doing and drive to the market to buy vegetables. There was an endless argument about money with the eldest sister who bought groceries. During this period, Luo Hong called and confessed softly that Wei Tiancheng had the gun in his hand, but he didn't give a single bullet. Hang up the phone and do some grocery shopping. This is one of the few pleasures he has. After returning home carrying the vegetables, Wen Shu raised the 2 bags of vegetables in his hand to Wen Nuan and smiled fondly. Baby girl, Daddy bought you crabs. Nuan looked at his father and said helplessly, covering his head. Old Wen, can you be more domineering? Why did you run back all the way when my mother said you were hungry? Hey. You'd better not go out without my mother in the future. I'm worried that you will be bullied. Lao Wen nodded in agreement, put the dishes on the dining table and gave his precious daughter a thumbs up, with a look of approval on his face, and said seriously. My daughter is right. After saying this, Wen Shu changed his smile and winked at Han Qian. Xiao Qian, I saw something in your eyes. Do you want to drink some? Dad still has a few bottles here, so let's take out one first. After saying this, Wen Shu ignored the murderous looks of Li Jinhe and Nuan Wen. He took out a small key from the phone case, which was only as big as a Wang's steamed bun. He ran to the storage room and took out an old wooden box. It was mysterious. Zixi took out a bottle of wine. It had no name, just a transparent glass bottle. Nuan looked at the wine in his hand, narrowed his eyes and smiled. I secretly hid this on the day when Nuan went to college. I just wanted to have some drinks with my son-in-law later. I gave my precious daughter to you. No matter whether you have the ability to protect my precious daughter or not, as long as I think if you do it, I, Wen Shu, will think it's worth it. You're talking nonsense. Go cook. The sensational scene was ruthlessly shattered by Li Jinhe. When she stood up, smiled at Han Qian, and trotted to the kitchen. In terms of family status, Wen Shu should be at the bottom. As soon as he walks into this family, Wen Shu will only regard himself as a father who dotes on his children and a husband who is afraid of his wife. He has the temper and ability to play with outsiders and with his wife at home. How much good can a child do by having a tantrum? Isn't that the Kang to King? Afraid of your wife? It's more about respect. In Wen Shi's eyes, the martial arts fist in Li Jinhe's mouth is almost the same as the embroidered leg with fancy fists. Can a big man not beat a woman? Isn't that a joke? I'm just too lazy to debate whether winning or losing is right or wrong. Winning, hurt feelings. If you lose, you lose. The Prime Minister's belly can hold a boat, or all serious Prime Ministers are men. Don't we need to be generous? Why bother with a woman who can't pee? If she likes to be the head of the family, she can be the one and live a comfortable and harmonious life. Li Jinhe also went to the kitchen. She wanted to ask Wen Shi what he had done just now. Han Qian listened to Wen Shi's silly smile and his mother-in-law's questions in the kitchen, lowered his head and muttered in a low voice. You little white-eyed wolf, why is Dad so cowardly? It makes me feel bad to see him being bullied by Mom. I've been watching him for more than 20 years. I'm used to it and don't feel bad anymore. If he wasn't bullied, I'd still feel weird. What did you call me? Little sheep. Nuan curled his lips. Little sheep? It's strange to believe. Compared with her mother-in-law, Wen was really like a little sheep. During dinner, Wen told the two elders about Han Qian's heroic image with great joy. There were stars in her eyes. Wen Shu followed Wen and laughed, but Li Jinhe didn't laugh at all. Perhaps only Han Qian himself knew how dangerous it was at that time. Wen Shu gave Han Qian half a glass of wine and talked about having a drink, but he poured a full glass himself. While drinking, he listened to the warm storytelling, but as he listened to it, Wen Shu felt something was wrong. It's okay, he whispered. Daughter, didn't Dad expose you? Didn't you come out in advance? How did you know what happened next? Wen Nuan was angry on the spot and waited for Wen Shu to say angrily with a sullen face. Just listen to what I say, why are you talking so much nonsense? Why can't I listen to poetry? Yes, I heard poetry saying that Boss 2 is really domineering, swaggering into the hotel, swaggering come out with 2 hostages, it is said. When Boss 2 pointed at the noses of these gangsters and scolded them, no one dared to speak. Having said this, Li Jinhe spoke softly. It's not that I don't dare, but I don't want to provoke Tu Xiao. The people at the Yamen are worried about the safety of the hostages. Tu Xiao doesn't care about that. There is no need for the gangsters to provoke these guys. When she kept nodding. Yes, your mother is right, you are still too young, well, Xiao Qian. I also heard about something. You seem to have been involved in the situation. If you want to get out, you should wait and see. Han Qian put down the whistle in his left hand, swallowed the food in his mouth, took another sip of water, then sat up straight and whispered softly. I have done some calculations and found that I am in a relatively special position in this mess. Now many people think that I know the secrets of the Yamanman. They all want to know what I know and use this to threaten the Yamanman. When she picked up the wine glass and nodded gently. When he spoke again, his voice was a little low. Han Qian's face became a little ugly, he lowered his head and whispered. There is only one for now, and it's not available yet. After saying that, he raised his head, looked at Wenxi with a tangled expression, and said sadly. Dad, I seem to have gotten into a lot of trouble. Wen Shubang was dropped heavily on the table and said angrily. Afraid? If you are afraid, you will become trouble that they dare not touch. Even if you don't know anything now, you have to pretend that you know everything. In the future, your road in this city will be wider and smoother. The premise is to ensure that the evidence of those people's crimes is not exposed. Han Qian's face became even more ugly. He turned his head pitifully to look at his mother-in-law and said aggrievedly. Mom, this is what Dad said. Li Jinhe gave Han Qian a piece of meat, narrowed his eyes and smiled. Your dad is right, you two stay at home tonight and chat with us. Good. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 210. This chat was real. Wen and Li Jinhe were watching TV and chatting in the living room. Han Qian was pulled by Wenxi into the innermost study room with a pot of tea and a box of cigarettes. When Han Qian came out, he was covered in sweat. The father-in-law was 100 times more terrifying than the mother-in-law when he was serious. He didn't curse a word, and kept chatting gently. Then he deduced the matter step by step. Han Qian didn't tell the father-in-law anything. The result is only punctuation marks. This is a bit scary. Before going out, Han Qian asked Wen Xiao what he wanted to say. Dad, are you willing? Wenxi was slightly startled at that time, and then smiled. Your mother's position in the military was stagnant because of her marriage to me, and she has been in this semi-retired state since then. What do you think I am unwilling to do? My life is so long. Don't let down the people who have devoted themselves to you. I listen. You said you have a confidant by your side? Well, you can make up your own mind. Anyway, Han Qian was very scared when he came out. He sat next to his mother-in-law, rested his head on her shoulder, and said sadly. Mom, Dad, he's so scary. Li Jinhe looked at this son-in-law and liked him. He gently stroked the back of Han Qian's head and smiled softly. Is it just talk on paper? Your dad is good at this. How can he give up without showing off? He is probably very satisfied with your state. Okay. You should also rest early. Okay, Mom. At this moment, Han Qian was as wilted as an eggplant beaten by frost. Lying on the bed, Han Qian tossed and turned, wondering why the old man could figure it out so clearly. After tossing and turning for more than 20 minutes, Nuan couldn't bear it after being woken up twice. He sat up, lit the lamp and glared at Han Qian, gritting his teeth. Are you uncomfortable until the wound opens? Huh. Why are you tossing around like a chicken trying to break out of its shell? Seeing Nuan wake up, Han Qian quickly sat up and asked seriously. Xiaobai, little sheep, why do you think my father-in-law understands so well? Just from what you said, I have deduced everything that may happen in the future. Why do you think he can I can't? When Nuan gritted his teeth and glared at Han Qian, saying angrily. How old is he? How old are you? You don't have much social experience, you don't have the worldly knowledge, and you haven't worked for a few days. What do you know? You can't sleep because of this? Han Qian, can you let go of your competitiveness? Are you in the right place? If there is a turtle that lives for 1,000 years, do you still have to compete with him? Sleep. The longest confirmed lifespan of a turtle is over 170 years old, and 1,000 years is false. Hearing Han Qian's words, Nuan closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Han Qian, is your forehead healed? This time Han Qian stopped talking and lay down to sleep obediently. Nuan glared at Han Qian and gritted his teeth before slowly lying down. As soon as he lay down, Han Qian's voice rang in his ears. It's so warm I can't sleep. Counting sheep. Then Han Qian started counting sheep like he was chanting sutras. As he continued to count, Nuan became anxious. He sat up and got out of bed and turned on the light. He pinched his waist and watched Han Qian grit his teeth and said angrily. You don't sleep, right? If you don't go to work tomorrow, I have to go to work. Can you be a human being? I'm going to sleep. Don't shout. I'm going to sleep right now. Turning off the lights again and going to bed, Nuan closed his eyes and went to sleep. Just as he was about to fall asleep, Han Qian spoke again. Temperature. You were talking and I hit your head. I'm sleepy. Oh. Can I turn over? Turn. I want to drink water again, but I can't unscrew the bottle. When Nuan stood up and opened the lid of the mineral water for Han Qian. After Han Qian finished drinking, Wen gritted his teeth and whispered. Go to the bathroom. I don't want to go. I'll let you go now. If you dare to speak when you come back, I'll fight you. Han Qian got up and went to the bathroom obediently, climbed into bed and lay down, staring at the roof. 2 minutes later, Han Qian couldn't help it anymore. You can chat with me. Then Han Qian was beaten. When Nuan had not had a good rest recently while taking care of Han Qian. He did not get up this time. He got into Han Qian's quilt and started to attack Han Qian's soft flesh. Han Qian whispered in a low voice. Girls are shy and feel embarrassed if they want to have physical contact with boys, so pinching them is the only way for them. At this time, it is best for boys to hold girls in their arms. Unfortunately, my arm is injured now, so I can't. Your wish is fulfilled. No, just resist the pinch. Fighting, laughing, and joking. The next morning, Li Jinhe quietly opened the door, his warm head resting on Han Qian's chest, and his other hand pressed on Han Qian's uninjured shoulder. The two children slept deeply, and Li Jinhe closed the door with a smile. Door. Very nice. Because the two guys stayed up late at night, Nuan, who had planned to go to the company early, was late. Han Qian naturally went to work. Because of his head injury, he put on a peaked cap and a suit and walked in at 10 in the morning. The company's front door. As soon as he walked in the door, he was caught by the security captain. He took Han Qian's hand and cried out that he was finally here and missed him so much. Han Qian curled his lips. You want to play landlord with me, but you're injured and can't play anymore. I have a flower pot over there, just put the sign in it. Han Daxian if you didn't come here, you wouldn't know how boring, lonely, and boring the company is. He raised his hand and pushed the big head away, winked at the little girl at the front desk, walked into the elevator and went straight to the general department on the 14th floor. I haven't been back for a long time. I really miss working here. Taking one foot into the door of the general department, Han Qian shouted. My dear colleagues, someone like me is back. Sul Yang, who also wore a peaked cap on his head and was chatting on QQ, stood up and kicked off his chair, opened his arms and rushed towards Han Qian. When he was about to hug Han Qian, Sul Yang saw Han Qian's hanging arms. Sul Yang put down his arms, he punched Han Qian lightly on the left shoulder and cursed angrily. You had a car accident and you didn't know how to call your brother? Can't you let me sit on the edge of the hospital bed and brag with you? I, I humming thought you were dead. Car accident? Han Qian instantly understood that Yan Qingqing had lied to him, raised his left hand and put it around Suliang's neck, smiling. Aren't I afraid of delaying the sweetness between you and Miss Yelai? My injuries are indeed not serious, but I am still far, far away from death. Suliang stared at Han Qian and whispered. I thought you encountered a robber at the party. I couldn't get through when I called you. Later, Minister Ji came and told Sister Yang that you had been in a car accident. I didn't know what kind of car you were hit by. What happened to your arm and head? It's all injuries. Hit his bike into a truck. Han Qian couldn't tell Suliang what happened, as this would put a distance between the two of them. Sitting in a familiar position, looking at the familiar computer, Han Qian sighed in his heart, it's so good to be alive. Shan Shan and De Chiener both came over. De Chiener knew the truth. At this moment, she looked a bit like a girl. She looked at Han Qian with mist in her eyes. Han Qian grinned at De Chiener. Isn't this good for me? Why are you crying? Let's play games later. Suliang, you control the direction keys and I'll drive. Han Qian didn't say the last word, but De Qian'er's tears had already fallen. She knew what happened to Han Qian, and she also knew that there was a gunshot wound on his shoulder. Fang Shanshan looked at Han Qian's arm with a small face. It's all about worry. Colleagues from the general department gathered around Han Qian to ask if he was feeling better now. They only asked if something happened. They couldn't help with big things, but they could definitely handle small things. When everyone was condolences to Han Qian, the door of the minister's office opened and everyone made way. Han Qian looked at Yang Lan in a blue suit and grinned. Sister Yang. The next second, Yang Lan ran over and hugged Han Qian, with tears in his eyes, and whispered in Han Qian's ear. Bad kid, do you know how dangerous you are? Do you know how young you are? How could you be so reckless to provoke him? It seemed that Yang Lan also knew the truth. Han Qian felt Yang Ian's worry and looked at the colleagues around him. He smiled and felt very warm in his heart. He smiled from the bottom of his heart and patted his left hand gently. Yang Lan smiled warmly from behind. Sister Yang, I'm back to work safely now. I promise I won't be so impulsive next time. My injury is on my right shoulder. Mentioning the wound, Yang Lan quickly let go of Han Qian. At this time, Lu Zhuolong handed over a tissue and smiled at Han Qian. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I asked your sister-in-law to make you some chicken soup or fish soup. You have to come to work tomorrow, and I will bring it to you in a thermos bucket in the morning. Han Qian said with a naive smile. Would you like a bigger one? Li Zhuolong smiled. Stew 2 little chickens, I'll call your sister-in-law right now. The general department is full of human touch, and Han Qian's return has also made the place more lively. You can hear Suliang's dirty laugh, you can hear De Chiener swearing because of the game operation error, and you can see Lu Zhuolong continuing to face Yang. Lan Xian was attentive and could see Fang Shanshan and other colleagues discussing handsome men. This is the scene that disappeared on the first day Han Qian left. Today everything is back. Noon. The 6-person gang gathered together again. Little Yang Jia came over with a large box of snacks and cried when she saw Han Qian. Brother Qianer. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 211. The 6-person team occupied the table again. This was a scene that had not appeared for a long time. Qianwan had not come to work after Han Qian's accident. He heard that Han Qian had only joined the company after being discharged from the hospital. Suliang was worried that Han Qian would also no appetite. Lu Zhuolong looked at Yang Ian's sad face and had no appetite. All the unpleasantness today has passed and Han Qian is back. Dakianir took the meal card and shouted, "You're welcome, whatever you want, don't say anything else. If you are happy today, you must buy a chicken drumstick for Brother Liang. Suliang smiled mischievously. Thank you for the reward from my aunt, let's go buy some food. Qianwan pouted. You don't have a head injury, so why are you wearing a hat? Suliang also pouted. Leave me alone. The table was filled with all kinds of lunches, and everyone was not polite, choosing what they liked to eat. Halfway through the meal, Miss Yalai came. Looking at the lunches on the table, she asked softly if she could have some. A lunch. Everyone is naturally welcome. After sitting down, Miss Yalai took out a small safety charm from her pocket and handed it to Han Qian, laughing softly. Young Master Han, don't dislike it? After I heard from Brother Liang that something happened to you, I ran to the temple to beg for one. Maybe this peace charm is of little use. I hope it can keep young Master Han safe. Han Qian stretched out his hand to take the peace charm and smiled. I was supposed to pick it up with both hands, but my situation doesn't allow it, Yalai. I was still uneasy when I came to work in the morning, but when I saw this peace charm of yours, I instantly felt at ease. I have to treasure it. Shan, can you see if you can hang this on my mobile phone? After all, it is a gift from my sister-in-law, oops. Look at my mouth, how good are you two now? Huh? Brother Qianer changed his mobile phone? Where is that antique? Fang Shanshan joked playfully, and at the same time carefully took Han Qian's mobile phone. Maybe this mobile phone is not expensive, but they all know that for Han Qian, changing a mobile phone is not much less important than buying a car, and then looking at Suliang and Li Li curiously. Suliang raised his head and smiled at Han Qian. I originally planned to get the certificate right after the Mid-Autumn Festival, but if something happens to you, neither of us has the intention. Wife, please don't pinch me. Not only Han Qian, but everyone who was doing it had their eyes widened. Is this already the case? Have you started calling your wife and counting the days to get your certificate? Xiao Yangjia was the first to recover and whispered. Li Li, you should think about it. In order to prevent you from falling into the fire pit, I have the obligation to remind you that although Suliang is not very reliable, as long as the whip is used hard, there is no stubborn donkey that cannot be beaten back. Lu Zhuolong nodded seriously. That makes sense. When you two get married, I will definitely give you a whip, the kind made of steel bars. De Chiener said immediately. I'll give you a millstone. It won't be useful if the donkey doesn't grind it. Li Li's eyes have turned into crescent moons. She is serious about Suliang. At the same time, she went to ask Han Qian for a peace charm to tell Suliang what she meant. In the temple, Suliang knelt in the main hall and shouted an oath to the Buddha. The commotion made him become the protagonist, and Miss Yalai was also moved. As for whether receiving the certificate is genuine, Li Li cannot be impulsive, but if Suliang insists on getting the certificate, she will not refuse. She doesn't need the house, she has the car. As for the betrothal gift, a symbolic auspicious number will be fine. The betrothal gift in Miss Yalai's heart is 1991. No more, no less, that's the number. The bride price just wanted to tell Suliang that she was not cheating on her. Everyone was talking about making trouble. Han Qian looked at Suliang and whispered. Are you sure this time it won't be the same as before? I don't want me to drag you around the streets after you get married. Suliang nodded to Han Qian and smiled. Seriously. After saying this, Suliang took off his hat. His long hair was gone, and now he had the same short hair as Han Qian had before. Han Qian leaned back and said with wide eyes and fear. Where did this monk come from? Suliang curled his lips and said sarcastically. How different are you and me? If you say that, I won't be stubborn with you. After saying that, they both lowered their heads to eat. Han Qian used a fork for the first time and used chopsticks with his left hand. He didn't have the ability yet. This meal was the most comfortable and happiest meal Han Qian had eaten after his accident. Unknowingly, he already likes this kind of life. It's great to be alive. Divorce is pretty good, right? This must not be heard by Nuan Nuan. The girl is probably still scolding him now. At this time, Wen covered his head and looked at the coffee in front of him. He had a headache. After struggling for a long time, he asked his secretary to change it to a cup of milk. It was all Han Qian's fault. He just said that coffee is not as nutritious as milk, so he just drank coffee for Wen. His habit has been changed, and Han Qian has to be blamed. If he hadn't slept last night, he wouldn't have a headache now. Was this guy opened up by Feng Lun's shot? The office door was pushed open again, and Nuan had no strength to raise his head, so he spoke tiredly. Just put it on the table. You can go down and notify the doorman later. As long as my letters and express delivery are delivered immediately, there is no need to knock on the door. After saying this for a long time, he realized that the milk had not been put down. When Nuan frowned and raised his head, he found that the person standing in the office was not the secretary, but Lin Zongheng. When Nuan frowned and said in a deep voice, "Does the president have something to do with me?" The title had changed from Mr. Lin to President. Lin Zongheng took a deep breath, put down the coffee in his hand, and spoke softly. "Xiao Nuan, you haven't come to work since the party incident. I'm very worried about you. Your mental state is very bad now. You'd better drink some coffee to refresh yourself." Nuan saw that the coffee that had just been taken away by the secretary was brought back by Lin Zongheng. His brows furrowed even more. He picked up the phone and called the secretary and said coldly, "Deduct all your salary for this month. If you are not satisfied, go to the Labor Bureau, Industrial and Commercial Bureau, wherever you want to sue me. If you want to resign, I will pay you your salary immediately." The little secretary was so frightened that she could only say that she had no objection, as she should. Putting down the phone, Nuan raised his head and whispered softly, "Thank you, CEO, for worrying me. I'm really tired now. Besides, my husband doesn't allow me to drink coffee anymore." Lin Zongheng said unwillingly. "Xiao Nuan, I actually wanted to save you at the party, but Han Qian's appearance gave me no chance." Lin Zongheng, we are not children anymore. We are no longer old enough to talk about care, love, and protection. For the safety of your life, you should have not come to save me. If you had saved me, I wouldn't know yet. How should I explain our relationship to my husband? At least now I can tell my husband straightforwardly that we used to be friends, but now we are just colleagues." Lin Zongheng's expression turned ferocious, his eyes gradually turned red, and he gritted his teeth. Nuan, how am I inferior to that Han Qian? You said that your marriage to him was just a fake, and you have to wait for me to come back." When Nuan looked at Lin Zongheng with an indifferent expression and said coldly, "Yes, the previous marriage between Han Qian and I was a sham. I said I was waiting for you to come back, but I didn't tell you what I was waiting for you to do. I can tell you straightforwardly now that I was waiting for you to come back to participate. My wedding ceremony with Han Qian. I like Han Qian, I love my husband, and my husband loves me too. He would knock out a gangster who pulled my hair with more than a dozen guns pointed at him. Oh my! Men are not the kind of guys who change their clothes and huddle in a corner shivering." When Nuan's straightforward words made Lin Zongheng completely give up. He took a step forward. At this time, the door of Wen Nuan's office was pushed open. Yu Shisai walked into the office on a pair of high heels and said with a teasing smile, "How are Mr. Lin's knees?" Feng Lun weighs 120 or 30 kilograms. Dragging him around all night would be unbearable for anyone. I have to say. Mr. Lin, your physical strength is really great. Good. Yu's poems were even more straightforward. Lin Zongheng's face was completely ruined by the two women. He threw the coffee in his hand against the wall and turned around to leave. After he left, Nuan covered his head and sighed, then picked up the phone again and called his secretary. If you dare to hand over my things to Lin Zongheng in the future, you should prepare a resignation report to me at the same time. My secretary is not Lin Zongheng's spy. Yu Shisai asked softly. Not resigning. When Nuan held his head with his hands and said helplessly. I have a problem. I get used to it. After using it for a long time, I don't want to change it. The same goes for men.